Words of our Divine Mother from the book The Mother, Question and Answers of 1953, Volume 5, page 141, date 8th July 1953. A paragraph from the Question and Answers of 1929, 19th May. Words of the Mother. The mind is an instrument of action and formation and not an instrument of knowledge. At each moment it is creating forms. Thoughts are forms and have an individual life independent of the author. Sent out from him into the world, they move in it towards the realization of their own purpose of existence. When you think of anyone, your thought takes a form and goes out to find him, and if your thinking is associated with some will that is behind it, the thought form that has gone out from you makes an attempt to realize itself. On this paragraph, one sadhak is asking the Divine Mother, Sweet Mother, do prayers and aspirations also take a form like thoughts? For this, our Divine Mother says yes. At times, they take even the form of a person who has the aspiration or makes the prayer. Often, that depends. Aspirations sometimes take the form of that to which one aspires, but most often, and especially prayers, clearly take the form of the one who prays. Then the sadhak has the next question, Sweet Mother, what is the difference between prayer and aspiration? For this, our Divine Mother says, there are several kinds of prayers. I've written this somewhere. There is purely mechanical, material prayer with words which have been learned and are mechanically repeated. That does not signify anything much, and that has usually only one single result, that of quietening the person who prays. For if a prayer is repeated several times, the words end up by making you calm. There is a prayer which is a spontaneous formula for expressing something precise which one wants to ask for. One prays for this thing or that. One prays for one thing or another. One can pray for somebody, for a circumstance, or for oneself. There is a point where aspiration and prayer meet, for there are prayers which are the spontaneous formulation of a lived experience. These spring up already from within the being, like something that's the expression of a profound experience, and which offers thanksgiving for that experience, or as its continuation, or as for its explanation also, and that indeed is quite close to aspiration. But aspiration is not necessarily formulated in words, or if it is formulated in words, it is almost a moment of invocation. You aspire for a certain state. For instance, you have found something in yourself that is not keeping with your ideal, a moment of darkness and ignorance, perhaps even of ill will, something that's not in harmony with what you want to realize. Then that is not going to be formulated in words. That will be like a springing flame, and like an offering made of a living experience, asking to grow larger, be magnified, and ever more and more clear and precise. All that must be put into words later, if one tries to remember and note down one's experience. But aspiration always springs up like a flame that rises high and carries in itself the thing one desires to be, or what one desires to do or desires to have. And then our Divine Mother says, I use the word desire, but it is truly, here the word is aspire. It should be used, aspire should be used for that does not either have the quality or the form of a desire. It is truly a great purifying flame of will which carries in its core the thing that asks to be realized. For instance, if you have done something you regret having done, if that was unhappy consequences which disturb things and several people are implicated, you do not know the reactions of others, but you yourself wish that what has been done may take a turn for the best, and that if there is a mistake, it may be understood, and that no matter what the mistake, this may be for you an opportunity for a greater progress, a greater discipline, a greater accent towards the divine, a door open on the future that you may want to be clear and true and intense. So, all this is gathered here, and Mother points out to her heart like a force, and then it surges up and rises in a great moment of ascent, and at times without the shadow of a formulation, without words, without expression, like a springing flame. That indeed is true aspiration. That may happen 100, 1,000 times daily if one is in that state in which one constantly wants to progress and be more true and more fully in harmony with what the divine will wants of us. Prayer, says our Divine Mother, prayer is a much more external thing, generally about a precise fact and always formulated, for it is the formula that makes the prayer. One may have an aspiration and transcribe it as a prayer, but aspiration goes beyond prayer in every way. It is much closer, much more, as it were self forgetful, living only in the thing one wants to be or do, or and an offering of all that one wants to do to the divine. You may pray in order to ask for something. You may also pray to thank the divine for what he has given you, and that the prayer is much greater. It may be called an act of thanksgiving. Our Divine Mother says, you may pray in gratitude for the aspect of kindness the Divine has shown to you, for what He has done for you, for what you see in Him, and the praise you want to offer Him. And all this may take the form of a prayer. It is decided the highest prayer, for it is not exclusively preoccupied with oneself if it is not an egoistic prayer. Certainly, one may have an aspiration in all the domains, but the very center of aspiration is in the psychic being, while one may pray in all domains, and the prayer belongs to the domain in which one prays. One may make purely material, physical prayers, vital prayers, mental prayers, psychic prayers, spiritual prayers, and each one has its own special character and a special value. There is a kind of prayer at once spontaneous, unselfish, which is like a great call, usually not for one's own self personality, but like that something that may be called an intercession with the divine. It is extremely powerful. I have had countless instances of things which have been realized almost instantaneously due to the prayers of this kind. It implies a great faith, a great ardor, a greater sincerity and simplicity of the heart, and something that does not calculate, does not plan, does not bargain, does not give with the idea of giving or receiving anything in exchange. For majority of men give with one hand, hold out the other to get something in the exchange. The largest number of prayers are of that sort. But there are others of this kind I have described, of thanksgiving, a kind of canticle, and these are very good. There you are. I don't know if I have made this myself very clear, but this is how it is. And then, to be clearer, we may say that prayer is always formulated in words. Words have different values and they are formulated. Prayer is a formulated one may aspire, but it is difficult to pray without praying to someone. For instance, one who has a conception of the universe form, which they have more or less driven out the idea of the divine. There are many people of this kind, the idea that there is someone who knows all, can do everything, who is so formidably greater than that there is no comparison. There's a bit troublesome, for they are amour propre, and so they try to make a world without the divine. These people evidently cannot pray, for to whom would they pray unless they pray to themselves, which is not the custom. But one can aspire for something without any faith, without having any faith in the divine. They are people who do not believe in the existence but have in the faith in the progress. They have the idea that the world is a constant progress and that this progress will go on indefinitely without stopping towards a greater betterment. Well, these people can have a greater aspiration and they do not even have the idea of a divine existence. Aspiration necessarily implies a faith, but not necessarily faith in a divine being. While prayer cannot exist if it is not addressed to the divine being. And pray to what? One does not pray to something that has no personality. One prays to someone who can hear us. If there is anybody to hear us, how could one pray? Hence, if one prays, this means that even when one does not acknowledge, one has the faith in somebody infinitely higher than us, infinitely more powerful, who can change our destiny and change us. If one prays, so it has to be heard. This is the essential difference. So, the more intellectual people admit aspiration and say that prayer is something inferior, the mystics tell you that aspiration is all very well, but if you want to really be heard, want the divine to listen to you, you must pray. And pray with the simplicity of a child, a perfect candor, with a perfect trust. I need this, I need that, or I'll ask this, or you give this to me. Or else, you've given me this, what I've asked for, you have made me really concretely, without even knowing me what my marvels are, I can attain at will. Yes, I'm definitely grateful to you. I offer a prayer of thanksgiving in sing and praise and thank you for your intervention. It is like that. These are all aspirations. To aspire, it is not necessary to direct the aspiration to someone. One has an aspiration for a certain state of being, for knowledge, for realization, state of consciousness. One aspires for something, but it is not necessarily a prayer. Prayer is a personal thing addressed to a personal being, and that is to something, a force or a being who can hear you, answer you. Otherwise, you can't ask for anything. These are the divine words of our Divine Mother.